Hello, everyone. It promises to bring massive temperature swings along with multiple winter storms as the polar vortex looks to return with heavy snow and much colder air as we head into the second week of February. Let's take a look at the upcoming setup. For our first storm system, we'll need to look way out in the Pacific as it's going to be a major mid-latitude cyclone event. Another atmospheric river is forming out there, setting up a steady stream of moisture that will move over the Hawaiian Islands and into Northern California, as well as Southern Oregon. And this will bring multiple rounds of heavy rain starting today and continuing through Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday night. In Hawaii, things are going to get rough with blizzard-like conditions at the summit of the Big Island, including 85-mile-per-hour wind gusts and 10 to 15 inches of snow on the mountains. Further south, heavy rain and higher winds will also hit the lower elevations, making for a nasty setup in the Pacific. The conveyor belt of moisture will impact Northern California and Southern Oregon over the next few days. Eventually, the snow will move inland, tapping into some of that colder air mass. If you're new to the channel and enjoy detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button to stay ahead of the storm with all my daily content. Now, let's take a look at the jet stream. We do indeed have a zonal flow, a more west to east progression coming off the Pacific, which typically brings warmer air. Areas further south of this line will see warmer than usual temperatures. In fact, it will feel much more like spring in those areas. To the north, we have the polar jet, the colder side of the air mass. Then we have the conveyor belt of moisture coming in from the Hawaiian Islands and the Pacific. This will bring heavy rain, high winds, and eventually snow to the interior regions of the Intermountain West. This will set up our battle zone. The cold air in Alaska won't last long, though. As ridging begins to build back in, it will set up a trough beneath, pressing against the ridge southward. This will establish the battle zone with well above average temperature anomalies. In fact, some areas in the southern plains, particularly in Texas, could see record-breaking temperatures on Monday. Some places in Texas may even reach the low 90s. A significant warm-up is on the table, but don't let it fool you. Winter will make a comeback with a vengeance as we move into the second week of February. Now, looking ahead to February 3rd, right after Groundhog Day, we'll see the conveyor belt of moisture moving in off the California coast. This will push heavier snow inland into the higher elevations of Oregon and Idaho, as well as through the Dakotas and into northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes. This will be our first winter storm with heavy rain in the southern branches of the jet stream at lower elevations and major impacts in the higher elevations with heavy snow. By Tuesday, the storm will move inland, bringing lighter snow and only minor impacts through Montana, the Dakotas, and the upper Midwest. Here's an initial look at snow totals over the next couple of days. The conveyor belt of moisture will bring feet of snow to the mountain regions, and as it presses inland, we'll see significant snow totals, 8 to 12 inches in Montana and the Dakotas, 3 to 5 inches further east, and 6 to 8 inches in the Northeast, 7 inches in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and northern Michigan. Then, once we swing over into upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, we'll see another 3 to 6 inches of snow between now and Tuesday night. Here's the rain aspect of the storm, too. Most of the rain will hit Northern California, which will experience the heaviest rainfall. Some areas could see 4 to 7 inches of rain with lighter amounts as you move further north into Eugene, Boise, and Idaho Falls. Regardless, it's going to be a significant event, primarily targeting Northern California. Now, let's take a look at the stratosphere as there's a lot happening. February is shaping up to be an active month, and it all depends on the polar vortex. Right now, we're seeing a bit of a reprieve as the polar vortex strengthens and becomes more compact. However, starting on February 4th, you'll notice the vortex stretching out and elongating, which will pull Arctic air further south into the lower 48 states. Much colder air will make its way back into the picture as we head into the second week of February. If this continues to unfold as expected, there could be an even more significant cold event around February 13th. While it's a bit of a lagging indicator, if the polar vortex becomes dislodged and splits, we could see even colder conditions. So while winter is definitely coming back, there's potential for an even colder second half of February. But for now, we're seeing confirmation of at least a stretching event as we approach the second week of February. Let's now check Europe for confirmation. When Europe experiences cold weather, it's often a sign that the US will see a cold snap as well. As we move into the next week, Europe is expected to experience well below average temperatures, which is a good sign that colder air will return to the lower 48. Another piece of confirmation comes from the teleconnections, which are important for understanding the larger atmospheric patterns. Looking at the Arctic Oscillation, AO, we see it's currently positive, meaning temperatures are above average. However, the trend is moving toward the second week of February, where it's expected to dip much further south and become more negative. Similarly, the East Pacific Oscillation, EPO, is predicted to remain predominantly negative over the next 2 weeks, pushing colder air from Canada into the lower 48. The North Atlantic Oscillation, NAO, is also trending negatively, and it's expected to continue to do so into the middle of February. This, along with the Pacific North American PNA index, is all pointing to colder air coming back into the U.S. All teleconnections are trending negative, which confirms that colder air is on the way. There's no question about it. Now, looking ahead to the setup for next week, we'll initially have a zonal flow, but the transition into a battle zone will start after the atmospheric river event on Tuesday night. This will allow colder air to push south from Alaska into British Columbia and the lower 48. At the same time, that abundant moisture from the atmospheric river will change over to snow in the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, with some ice possibly forming in parts of Iowa and southern Wisconsin. As the colder air moves further south, we'll start to feel the effects by Friday of the upcoming week. In terms of precipitation over the next 7 days, most of the action will be off the West Coast, with Northern California bearing the brunt of the heavy rain. Unfortunately, the desert Southwest will miss out on most of it. The central U.S. will see higher precipitation in areas like Tennessee, Kentucky, and southern Illinois and Indiana, with heavier amounts in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. Some of this will fall as snow in the northern regions within the polar jet stream, but overall, things are turning colder. That cold air is starting to spill out and make its way south into the mid-latitudes. Right now, we're seeing the vortex begin to elongate, and this could lead to a significant change in the weather over the next couple of weeks. If it continues to stretch, we could be in for a period of much colder weather, especially in the second half of February. To back this up, we're seeing signs of colder weather starting to build across Europe. When Europe experiences a cold snap, the U.S. often follows suit a week or two later, and it looks like that's going to happen again. As we head deeper into February, you can expect that cold air from the Arctic to start pushing southward, and we'll likely see a return to more winter-like conditions across the lower 48 by the time we hit next weekend. The South will begin to feel the effects of this shift, and we could see temperatures dropping 10 to 15 degrees below normal in some areas. Meanwhile, south of this system, California's Central Valley and lower elevations are seeing rain, although the snow will remain confined to areas above 3,000 feet in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. Areas like Fresno and Sacramento won't see snow, but snow may accumulate in the foothills, adding much needed moisture to the region, which has been struggling with drought in recent years. The precipitation in these areas will help replenish water supplies, making it a welcome sight for many. As we move eastward, the storm system will bring snow and colder weather to the northern Great Plains. States like Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana are already experiencing snowy conditions, and these areas are expected to get even more snow throughout the day. The higher elevations could see snow totals in the 6 to 12 inch range, which could create slippery driving conditions in the mountain regions. The snow is expected to continue into tomorrow in places like Bozeman, Missoula, and parts of Yellowstone National Park. If you're traveling through those areas, make sure to be prepared for winter weather, including icy roads and snow-covered highways. Further east, the storm is moving into the Midwest and affecting the Great Lakes region. Snow is already starting to accumulate in areas like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and that trend is expected to continue for the next couple of days. The snow won't be intense or long lasting, but it will still cause disruptions to travel in the form of slippery roads and reduced visibility. Places like Duluth, Green Bay, and Traverse City are expected to get several inches of snow by tomorrow afternoon. Northern Michigan, including the Upper Peninsula, is likely to receive heavier snow accumulation, with up to 6 inches or more falling in some areas. This will make for a challenging commute, especially for those heading out on the road. Moving to the northeast, a quick moving snowstorm is expected to bring fresh snow to areas like New York City, Connecticut, and parts of northern New Jersey and Pennsylvania. The snow will likely start later in the day and accumulate quickly, with the snow expected to last through the evening and possibly into the early morning hours tomorrow. The snow won't be particularly heavy, but areas like Albany, Syracuse, and Boston could see a couple of inches accumulate by the time the storm moves out. While it won't be a major snowstorm, it could still cause delays and slow travel for commuters. So it's important to keep an eye on the forecast for updates as the system pushes eastward. Northern New England will likely see heavier snow, especially in Maine and New Hampshire, where snow totals could climb as high as 6 inches by tomorrow morning. Once the storm moves out of the northeast, conditions will begin to clear and the region will return to more typical winter conditions. Sunny skies are expected and temperatures should remain cold, although not as extreme as those seen further west. However, lake effect snow will continue to impact parts of the Great Lakes, especially near Buffalo, Cleveland, and Rochester, where localized bursts of heavier snow could cause brief but intense travel disruptions. Looking ahead to the weekend, a new storm system will start to form in the central U.S., impacting places like Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, and Nebraska. This system will bring a mix of rain and snow along with strong winds that will make for dangerous driving conditions. By Sunday, the storm will move eastward, impacting the Great Lakes and Northeast once again. The weekend storm could bring several inches of snow to parts of Michigan, Ohio, and New York. While lake effect snow will also continue to affect areas near the Great Lakes. As the system moves east, we'll likely see a return of snow in the higher elevations, so be prepared for potential disruptions if you're traveling in those areas. Yas, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates. I'll see you in the next one.